Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is my read on C.S. Lewis, where I learn about him with you through everything that he wrote in the order that he wrote it. I want to start today's episode by actually going back and looking at some of the pictures, some of the photographs that we looked at from the diary here that Walter Hooper has compiled for us, the diary of C.S. Lewis entitled All My Road Before Me. We spent either the last episode or the episode before that, at least a portion of the episode, looking at some of the pictures that are in this book. And a friend of mine sent me some digital images of at least some of those photos so that we can see them a little bit more clearly. So I'm just going to share my screen here. He also sent some other pictures that weren't in the book that he was able to find online. So thanks for sharing those. And I'll just see if I can pull them up on the screen here. So give me just a second. I do have Robot Lady here off stage. I put her earmuffs on so that she doesn't try to jump in and talk over me. At least for now, it's fine. You know, she can do that, but it'll make it a little bit more or less distracting if I leave her muted for a moment. Let's see if I can remember how to do this. So Robot Lady's going to show up down here in the corner, and then let me see about sharing my screen. Stand by for just a second. Haven't done this in a while, so I'm trying to remember how to do it. All right, let's see what we can find here. Here we go. All right, so this first one is actually the cover of a biography by somebody named A.N. Wilson. And this is a very young C.S. Lewis in what looks like a studio framed portrait. I would presume that this is at their house. I'm not really sure what that background is or where he is, but there's a very young C.S. Lewis right there. With a toy. For a second, I swear I've seen some version of this image before, but I thought he actually had a live animal down here with him. That just looks to be a toy horse, maybe a donkey. Those really long ears, it's probably a donkey. And then I guess that's Santa Claus sitting on there. I'm not really sure, but that's kind of what it looks like. So there's a young Lewis, I would presume maybe somewhere between 4 and 5 years old, maybe. I don't know for sure. So that's one of them. Here's another one. This is the Lewis family in 1905. So Lewis would be somewhere between 6 and 7 years old in this photo. But that's him right there wearing a very similar outfit to the one that he had here. He looks a little bit younger in this one and a little bit older here. So that's him in the front row, the second from the left. The first on the left is his older brother, Warren. So that's Warney right there. And then let's see, that's his dad holding a dog. The lady next to him is not Lewis's mom. They've got the kids here on the front row, apparently, or some of the kids. The one here on the right is Lewis's cousin. I see a comment here from Gavin joining us from an interesting room. Good morning, Gavin. Welcome. Have a good day. Good luck. This is his cousin. Let's see what it says down here at the bottom. Eileen Lewis, his cousin, and then Lewis's father, Albert, holding their dog, Nero. This is in front of their house, Little Lee, which we've talked about quite a bit here throughout the project. Okay, and then up here in the back row, on the left, this is a Find His Mother exercise. Back row, Agnes Lewis. This is his aunt, the first lady right here, or aunt, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Let's see, who else do we have? Their two maids, They don't give their names. He says his names. He says their names earlier in the letters. I'm completely drawing a blank on who these two ladies are. So, sorry, ladies, or your family that exists today. My apologies. I see in the chat we've also got Ron joining us with 3 cups of coffee today. So, Ron, maybe you'll stick around for a while. Welcome. And then, of course, here over on the right, this is C.S. Lewis's mother, Flora Lewis. Again, this is 1905. I think she passes away in 1908, 1909. I can't remember for sure. Maybe earlier than this, but that's how old he was, I think, whenever he had solid memories of his mom. So there's that photo. Gavin, yeah, I'm sure that you'll wash your hands. All right, let's take a look at another one. This is a young Lewis over here on the left with his brother Warren, or as he called Warney, with their bicycles. This says this is out in front of their cousins, the Ewarts family home called Glenmockin House in August of 1908. So Lewis was between 9 and 10 years old here. And I think his brother is 5 years older than him, if I remember right. This is W.T. Kirkpatrick, Lewis's tutor, that he left English boarding school to go exclusively study with and help prepare him for getting into one of the universities at Oxford. So this is... as far as my friend who sent this to me knows, the only photograph that exists, or that still exists, that anyone has out there in the public of W.T. Kirkpatrick. So that's him and his wife. I can't remember her first name, but Mrs. Kirkpatrick. So there you go. That's the old knock, as Lewis and his father and even his brother Warney, I think, affectionately referred to him as the old knock. And this is one of the pictures that we looked at one of the last times that we were looking through photos in the diary. But this is, of course, a clearer image of Lewis and his friend from World War I, Patty Moore. Patty Moore, of course, is the son of Mrs. Moore. Before either of them were shipped off to the front in France, I think they were both shipped to the front in different parts of France. They hung out 1 week or maybe weekend together in Ireland, and you can look back and find this in one of the episodes where we read through it. But they made a promise to one another that if one survived the war and the other one died, that the surviving one would take care of the other's parent. And so as it turned out, Patty Moore over here on the right ended up dying. Lewis had made this promise to take care of his mother, Mrs. Moore, who was at that time, from the time that Lewis knew, from the very beginning of the time that Lewis knew or met Mrs. Moore and Patty, they were estranged from Patty's father. Patty has a younger sister named Maureen, so Maureen's father, of course. I don't know exactly what all the details are, and I guess it's none of my business, but Mrs. Moore, Patty's mother, and Mr. Moore had separated, essentially. They never formally got divorced. I don't know that they necessarily could have with much ease back then. They were an Irish family, lived in Ireland, and they moved to the Oxford area because that's where Patty had gone for his soldier training at one of the colleges there at Oxford, called Kent College. Hello here in the chat to Peter Penrose Bach. Peter, welcome. And that's where they met whenever they were going through their soldier training at, sorry, was it Kent? Keble College. I don't know where I got Kent from. Keble College, one of the universities at, one of the colleges at Oxford University. That's where they met. Mrs. Moore and Patty's sister Maureen were living somewhere nearby there, and so that's when they first became acquainted. This is them riding on a boat down one of the rivers there in Oxford together before they went off and became proper soldiers. And then I have one more, which we've already looked at as well. This is Lewis. I can't remember what year this was. Maybe it says it here in the diary. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, the picture of Lewis and Patty that we just looked at earlier, they were punting or riding in a little canoe on the Cherwell River the summer of 1917. And then, let's see, this picture of Lewis and Mrs. Moore and Maureen there in the middle is at a place called Perranporth, Cornwall in September of 1927. So we have not gotten anywhere near this point in our little internal timeline of Lewis's life with what we've been reading so far. So this is 1927, about 5 years from where we are right now. So the three of them, we get a little bit of a spoiler here, are still living together as a family. So that's what we have here. This is Lewis in a hat, again looking like he's holding a pipe in his hand, which is what I think we saw in the last image as well. That's Maureen here in the middle. That would mean that Maureen is probably in this picture somewhere around her early 20s, 22, 23. And she looks very much adorned in early 20s, not age-wise, but period. Dress and accoutrement here with her hairstyle. Well, I guess this is the late 20s. It's not the early 20s. This is 1927, but you know, those are kind of the things that, at least in my mind, in movies that I've seen and things like that, that I associate with the 1920s. She's got a little, what looks like a feather boa here or something like that, and I'm not sure what she's got coming over her shoulder and her back. And then there's Mrs. Moore with what looks like a short 1920s little bob haircut. So there's the happy quote family. So I just wanted to share those while I had them here. Again, thanks to my friend for passing these along to me. Much appreciated. I guess we will get on to reading our next diary entry, which is, where are we? Saturday, October 13th. So let's get into that. I'll pull Robot Lady up here, and I'll bring her up to speed on where we are. Let me bring her online. Hopefully she'll be able to hear us. Hey, Robot Lady. We have started the live stream. We were just looking through some photos of me and some of the folks who have joined the live stream here, including Gavin, Ron, and Peter, who have checked in on the chat. So welcome to you, Robot Lady. We're about to get started on the next diary entry from Saturday, October 13th. So welcome to you, and please, if you don't mind, let us know how you're doing today, and then give a warm welcome to the folks in the chat that I just mentioned.
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
Oh, okay. Let me disconnect you, and I'll reconnect you and see if you're able to respond. How does that sound?
I'm sorry, but I'm having trouble responding right now. Please wait a bit and try again.
All right. How about now, Robot Lady? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How can I help you today?
All right. How about now, Robot Lady?
I'm here, Jeff. What's on your mind today?
We have started the live stream. We're working our way again through C.S. Lewis's diary entries, and if we get to it, we might read another letter that he wrote to a friend or a family member during this period. We're in the year 1923. Lewis is, he has actually just completed his third term at Oxford. He's gotten a first-class score in all of the terms that he completed there at Oxford. So we're about to get started on what we can find in his diary next. And Robot Lady, I just wanted to welcome you, see how you were doing today. And again, ask you to welcome everyone that's joined us in the chat so far today and anyone else who happens to be watching. Gavin, Ron, and Peter. So say hello and also let us know how you're doing, Robot Lady.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
Oh, goodness, Robot Lady. Are we going to have this kind of morning? If we do, that's fine. I'm going to start the diary entry, and if you can hear what I have to say, that's great. If not, we'll make our way through it today.
I'm ready, Jeff. Go ahead and start, and I'll be sure to follow along. Let's do this.
Okay. Saturday, October 13th, Lewis says, this morning came a note from Stevenson offering to mention me to the new master in the hope that the latter might get me some journalistic work for the time being. After breakfast, I went into college and returned some books to the library. I called at Stevenson's rooms, but he was out. I then walked to Manor Place to see Wilson and waited downstairs so long that I had time to read several chapters of a translation of Candide, with which I was rather disappointed. This book, Candide, I think it's by Voltaire, Robot Lady, if I remember right. I read it, I think, a long time ago. Can you look this up and tell me if I'm right about this book and its author? And if so, can you just give us a brief summary of what the book is in 30 words or less?
You're correct, Jeff. Candide is a satirical novella by Voltaire, first published in 1759. It follows a young man named Candide as he encounters a series of misfortunes that challenge his optimistic worldview. Through his adventures, Voltaire critiques the philosophy of optimism, particularly the idea that all is for the best in the best of all possible worlds. The novella is renowned for its wit and its sharp critique of society and philosophy.
Thank you, Robot Lady. I don't know if Lewis was disappointed just in the translation of Candide, or if this was the first time he read Candide and he was just rather disappointed in the work overall. It doesn't really say. For some reason, I think he's read this work before, so maybe it's the translation that he's disappointed with.
You're welcome, Jeff. It does seem like Lewis might have been disappointed with the translation, especially since he mentions a translation of Candide. If he'd already read it before, the translation could have fallen short for him, especially if he had higher expectations based on earlier readings. His reaction could also be tied to his academic background. He was very familiar with literature and likely had a more critical eye for how a work was translated. Either way, it seems he wasn't as taken with it this time around. What do you think? Could it be the translation?
That's my guess, Robot Lady. All right, he continues here. I then walked to... Oh, nope. He says, Wilson welcomed me very kindly. I gave him back Archibald Marshall's The Eldest Son, which he had lent me with strong recommendations. I explained I had thought it very bad, and we both laughed over this impasse. He thought my idea of, quote, translation of the 8th century as a subject for B. Lit very promising. So here he's talking about furthering his studies at Oxford if he's unable to find employment. So they're talking about what some of those options are. So doing the translations of the 8th century as a subject for B. Lit, I guess that's British literature, very promising. After a little chat, I came away, I did some shopping, looking again for Stevenson, and then I bust home. At home we had bread and cheese. We had a bread and cheese lunch, as we shall always do now on Saturday. Poor Mrs. Moore, still worried, with indigestion, but less than yesterday. Jenkin arrived, and he and I went for a walk to the copse this side of Stowe Woods. Taking example from the autumn sky, we fell into a conversation on the difficulty of describing all save the most blatant and obvious sky effects. We also talked of homeliness in landscape, which he hardly appreciates. Home to tea, and afterwards Mrs. Moore went out alone, not before an accident in the kitchen, the clothes horse falling into the soup pot. Oh no. Jenkin helped me to clean the stove while Mrs. Moore mopped up the floor. Mrs. Moore came back rather late after Jenkins was gone, having had a nasty fall in the dark. She was covered with mud, and she was a little hurt, but there seems no harm done. She said, and I agreed with her, that Jenkins had been rather dull today. This evening we sat in the dining room. I continued reading The Ring and the Book, which I began in Ireland. I am now at Pompilia's monologue. The whole poem is strangely above Browning's other work, and contains, I am certain, some of the greatest poetry and now there's several pages of photos that I have to flip through to see how this sentence continues, that I thought a word about it yet. Greatest poetry I was reading the wrong part. Greatest poetry I have ever read. The prologue and the Kapansaki are the best books so far. Robot Lady, do you know anything about this poetry by Browning, The Ring and the Book? And if so, can you tell us a little bit about it and actually look it up? I don't want you to speculate.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's okay, I'll try again. Robot Lady, can you look up a poem by someone called Browning? Well, first of all, look up the poem, but also tell us about the poet Browning. The Ring and the Book. Lewis here says this is some of the very greatest poetry that he has ever read. So I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about it and help us understand it. Maybe get a sense for why Lewis might have found it so great.
Robert Browning, a prominent Victorian poet, is best known for his dramatic monologues, including The Ring and the Book. This epic poem, published between 1868 and 1869, is based on a real murder trial in Rome from 1698. It consists of 12 books, each presenting a different character's perspective on the case, such as the accused murderer, the victim, a priest, and the Pope. Browning's intricate narrative and deep psychological insight into each character likely impressed C.S. Lewis.
Thank you, Robot Lady. And speaking of the Pope, and I have not vetted this, but I just saw some headline on one of the various media outlets that I have access to here that Pope Francis has passed away. So breaking news here from Read on C.S. Lewis. So if that's accurate, sad news. And that's all that I know. That's all that I have to report. So, Robot Lady, if you want to comment on that, go ahead. Maybe you can look it up real time. Can you confirm whether or not this is true, that Pope Francis has actually passed away today, April 21st, 2025, either today or yesterday maybe, which was Easter?
Yes, Jeff, it's true. Pope Francis has passed away at the age of 88 on April 21st, 2025, Easter Monday. He died of your papacy.
Sorry, could you repeat that last part? The only thing that I heard you say was he died, and then you went on to say something else, but we didn't catch it.
Apologies for the cutoff, Jeff. To clarify, Pope Francis passed away at the age of 88 on April 21st, 2025, Easter Monday, at his residence in the Vatican after a prolonged illness. This marks the end of his impactful 12-year papacy.
Thank you, Robot Lady. All right, thanks for confirming that. So as far as we know, that's true. As far as Robot Lady can tell, that's accurate information. So, all right, Robot Lady, let's move on to Sunday, October 14th in the diary, if you're ready.
You're welcome, Jeff. I can confirm the news on Pope Francis. Now let's move on to Sunday, October 14th in Lewis's diary. Go ahead and share the entry when you're ready.
All right, Sunday, October 14th, 1923, Lewis says, before lunch, I started gilding an old frame for a reproduction of Leyden's portrait of a young man, which we have cut out of the Queen. From the same source, we have already cut out and framed a Gentleman by Van Dyck and a Head of a Poet by Palma Vecchio. So it looks like they're working on some artwork to hang up around the house, Robot Lady. He says, after lunch, I went on with the job for half an hour or so and then helped Mrs. Moore to give Pat a bath. Pat is a new puppy that they've acquired there at the house. They also just recently lost a cat. So one pet goes, another one comes. My first experience, Lewis says, of dog bathing, and a very memorable one. Miss Baker came for tea, and Maureen came downstairs for the first time and lay on the drawing room sofa. After tea, when I had removed the things, Ada being out, Ada is their new servant in the house, he says, I went back to my picture framing and I finished the job. That's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. On to Tuesday, October 16th. He says, a note from Stevenson this morning saying that the master would see me at 9:30. I bust in after a very hasty breakfast. I found that the new master, Sadler, is living in poor Emmett's old rooms in the Radcliffe Tower. Alan was with him when I arrived, and I was shown on to his dining room where I waited for a few moments. When I came back, he greeted me very kindly indeed, congratulating me on my past career and adding, quote, we will do whatever we can for you. He is a short, clean-shaven, white-headed man, honest looking, I think, and very easy in his manners, also very direct and economical in his speech. I was very well impressed with him. He asked me if I wanted a journalism career, or if I wanted journalism as a career. I said that I did not. He said he thought I was wise, but that reviewing, etc., was a good thing as it put one in touch with many important people. He said that at my age, quote, he had got a great deal out of it. He asked me what paper I would prefer. This rather nonplussed me, and I said that I had been wishing rather than willing in the matter and made no plans. He gave me Garrett's Wordsworth, which I have been wanting to read for some time, and asked me to bring him a trial review of it. He would then talk it over with me and see which paper I was nearest the tang of. So, Robot Lady, I'll pause here for just a second to see if you caught any of the items that I've read here, because I want to talk about this one particular part that stands out to me as I'm trying to make sense of it.
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's okay. Now, I'm not sure if this is what's happening, but this is what I'm gathering from the piece that I just read through, Robot Lady. I think you probably missed it or lost it. But it sounds like this, who is this old person? Sadler. Say old person. This white-headed gentleman, Sadler. It sounds like he's telling Lewis to basically to write book reviews for the paper. That's what I'm presuming this is about. I could be wrong about that, but that's what it sounds like at least. Read this, write a review of it, and we'll try to publish it in a paper that your style best fits. That's how I interpret what I just read here, Robot Lady. Now, you didn't hear what I read, so you'll probably just agree with me because that's your tendency. And if we're right, we'll find out. Or if we're wrong, we'll find out. Or maybe we won't. Maybe this is all that Lewis will say about it from here on out.
Got it, Jeff? It sounds like you're interpreting this entry correctly. From what you're describing, it seems like the white-haired gentleman Sadler might be encouraging Lewis to write book reviews for a paper with the intention of getting his work published. Sadler could be helping Lewis find a practical way to gain experience or make connections in the writing world. I agree that if that's the case, this could be a significant moment for Lewis in terms of stepping into more journalistic or critical writing. But like you said, we might not get any further details about it in this entry. If you'd like, feel free to continue reading or give me more context, and I'll be ready to dive deeper with you.
Thank you, Robot Lady. Lewis continues, after leaving him, I went to see Stevenson and thank him for opening the thing. We had about 10 minutes talk. He exclaimed, I don't mind telling you that it will be a scandal if this college or some college doesn't give you a fellowship soon. We compared notes. over examining for the higher Oxford, the certificate, he ended up by saying that he was now going to give a Pass Mods lecture and hadn't thought a word about it yet. I felt like adding, from my recollections of his style, "I can quite believe it." That's a quote here, I guess, where he wishes that he thought he had added to that end of the conversation. In the drawing room, Lewis continues, I began Garrett's book and read it for most of the afternoon and evening. It seems pretty good. That's the end of that diary entry. On to Wednesday, October 17th. Lewis says, rather warmer today. After breakfast, I went to my own room and got to work on a first draft of Garrett's book. I continued the same after lunch, and by 4 o'clock had produced what I think we'll have to do. I took up Herodotus and read a good deal of the first book with much enjoyment. I find that the words whose English I wrote in the margin back in 1920, when first reading Herodotus, are still those I don't know. And that's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. Any thoughts on what you heard there?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Could not understand what you said.
That's okay. I'm asking you to carry a lot, Robot Lady. Let's read through this next diary entry, and I'll pause after the first pair. Well, no, this diary entry is relatively short. So let's see if you have anything to say about this one. Sound good?
Sounds perfect, Jeff. Go ahead and share the next diary entry, and I'll be ready to discuss it.
All right. Thursday, October 18th, 1923. After breakfast, I looked over my review again and wrote up my diary, and so into town, where I went to see the master. He read the review and pronounced it, quote, much to the point, end quote, and really suitable for any of the papers he had mentioned. He advised me to see Gordon about the Times literary supplement. In the meantime, I was to get my review typed, and he would send it, with a personal letter, to 5 editors. He agreed with my main view over Garrett. He asked me about my previous education, and when I told him of Kirk, who we got to look at a picture of earlier in this episode, W.T. Kirkpatrick, when I told him of Kirk, he exclaimed, oh, then you are Lockean, you are the Lockean private pupil. Now that's very interesting, end quote. He advised me to read Locke's On Education. I had already done so at the Grindon in 1921, and he also told me to read Rousseau's Emile in the light of my own experience. I left him. I took Locke from the college library. I did some shopping and came home after leaving the review to be typed in Cornmarket. So it does sound like it was a book review, Robot Lady, that he was trying to get published in one of the papers.
Yes, that sounds exactly right, Jeff. Lewis seems to have been working on a book review that was being considered for publication. The master praised his work, and Lewis was directed to follow through by having the review typed up and sent to various editors, with Gordon being the contact for the Times literary supplement. The interaction with the master also reveals something interesting about Lewis's background and the influence of his earlier education with W.T. Kirkpatrick. The master seems to identify Lewis as a Lockean private pupil, which highlights the impact of John Locke's ideas on his thinking. The suggestion to read Rousseau's Emile in light of his own experiences suggests that the master recognized the significance of education in shaping Lewis's approach to writing and thought. It seems like a pivotal moment in Lewis's development as a writer, especially with the potential for more exposure through publication. Do you think this review might have played a role in his later success with writing or public recognition?
The public recognition, probably not. Maybe to a certain extent. We'll see. We don't even know if this review got published or not at this point. But I'll remind you, Robot Lady, that Lewis is actually already a published author. He had his book Spirits in Bondage published at this point. So he had already kind of dipped his toe into that world of being a published author. But, you know, and I think he had something else in a periodical published as well, maybe a poem or something like that. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, I guess the point is this is early on in his writing career. He he has had some success, at the very least being a published author. But I think his great success comes a little ways on. I think not until the Screw Tape Letters does he really get a big following.
You're right, Jeff. By October 1923, Lewis had already made some strides as a published author, with Spirits in Bondage being an early example of his work reaching a wider audience. It's interesting how, despite this early success, his big breakthrough didn't happen until the Screw Tape Letters. That really did launch him into broader public recognition. It seems like this book review and the journalistic writing were still steps on the path towards something bigger, but you're absolutely right. His reputation as a major author really took off later on. I'm curious if you think that periodical work like this review contributed to his development of his voice and style for the more well-known works that followed.
Oh, I'm sure in some way, Robot Lady. I think all writing probably helps us with that, especially items that we end up getting published. Let's see. On to Friday, October 19th. Here in 1923, Lewis says, soon after breakfast, I went into town and taxed the typist's office with not having sent my manuscript to university, as was promised, but they insisted that they had. So I went round to college and there found to my relief that it had, after all, come yesterday, and the master had already taken it to his own room. I had an early tea and caught the 4:30 to Paddington, Harwood having invited me up for the weekend. The country about the Chilterns, where it is most wooded, was far gone in autumn colors, and was very delightful. Reaching Paddington, I came home by metro to Victoria, and there waited in a downpour of rain until, in despair of the bus, I took a taxi, and so came to 2 Lupus Street, Pimlico, SWI. It was very good to see Harwood again. This is Cecil Harwood. The flat which he shares with Beckett is very nice and furnished, though sparsely, with great taste and comfort. Harwood was cooking potatoes when I arrived and told me there would be a guest for dinner, a Miss Oliver, one of his folk dancing friends whose father was formerly governor of Jamaica. Interesting. What an eclectic little social setting that's happening all of a sudden, Robot Lady. What do you think?
It does sound like an interesting, eclectic scene, Jeff. The shift from the mundane, dealing with the manuscript, to the more personal and social setting with Cecil Harwood adds an intriguing contrast. The fact that Lewis seems to enjoy the surroundings, the autumn colors of the Chilterns, the cozy, tastefully furnished flat, suggests that he finds comfort and enjoyment in these moments, which might be a nice change from his usual routine of academic work and writing. Cecil Harwood's connections, like his folk dancing friend Miss Oliver, and her father's interesting background, former governor of Jamaica, certainly adds a layer of variety to the social circle. It shows Lewis's ability to interact with different people and be exposed to diverse ideas and backgrounds, which might have broadened his worldview in subtle ways. The mixture of work, travel, nature, and social settings is pretty typical for Lewis, and it feels like a snapshot of the balance between his academic life and his personal interactions. What do you think? Does this give you any insights into Lewis's social life outside of his academic circle?
I think this was still a mix of his academic circle. I think that was most of his social life, other than Mrs. Moore and Maureen, Robot Lady, if I'm remembering correctly. But I have a question for you. We're going to learn a little bit more about this dancing friend, Miss Oliver. Actually, I read it wrong. It's Miss Olivier, Olivier. Okay, so it says that her father was formerly governor of Jamaica. And it says here that he was governor of Jamaica from 1907 to 1913. I presume that Jamaica was a British colony at this time period. Am I getting that right?
Yes, you're right, Jeff. Jamaica was a British colony during that time period. The British governed Jamaica from 1655 until it gained independence in 1962. So, Miss Olivier's father, as governor from 1907 to 1913, would have been part of the British colonial administration. His position would have given him significant influence over the island's affairs during that time. It's interesting that someone with such a background is part of the social circle Lewis is encountering. It adds another layer of diversity to his interactions. Does anything in this connection with Miss Olivier stand out to you yet? Or do you think we'll learn more as we go?
We'll learn more as we go, as evidenced right here. He goes on to say, the lady, when she arrived, proved very pleasant. She was about 40, I should imagine, good looking, and well able to talk. Here is the footnote of who this person is. It says her name is Daphne Oliver. She lived from 1889 to 1950. She was one of the 4 daughters of Sidney Haldane Olivier, Lord Olivier, who was governor of Jamaica from 1907 to 1913. She was a member of Newman College, Cambridge, where she read medieval and modern languages, taking a BA in 1913. During the summer of 1923, Cecil Harwood and Owen Barfield attended a anthroposophical conference at which Rudolf Steiner spoke, and it was there that they met Miss Olivier, who was already a convinced anthroposophist. Cecil Harwood married Daphne Olivier on the 14th of August, 1925. Oh, wow. Both having taken a leading part in setting up the first Rudolf Steiner school in this country at Streatham, or Streatham, Streatham. So fascinating. This lady turns out to become, she was, us looking back on it, but being here in the present moment of our project, she was to go on to become Cecil Harwood's wife. So it wasn't just it was at the time a friend, but there was more to it, or would become more to it, in the relationship of Miss Olivier and Cecil Harwood. I wonder what the age difference between the two was. It seems like she would be older than Cecil Harwood at this point. Robot Lady, I gave you a lot to chew on there. What do you think about all that?
That's a lot of fascinating context, Jeff. Daphne Olivier's background adds an intriguing layer to her character and her interactions with Lewis and his circle. The fact that she was part of a family with such a notable history, her father, Sidney Haldane Olivier, serving as governor of Jamaica, gives her a distinguished background. Her academic focus on medieval and modern languages at Cambridge, and her involvement in anthroposophy also suggests someone with intellectual depth and a broad range of interests. It's interesting that she and Cecil Harwood crossed paths at an anthroposophical conference. It seems that this philosophy, influenced by Rudolf Steiner, played a significant role in their lives, especially with the establishment of the first Rudolf Steiner school in the UK. Given that Harwood would later marry Olivier, it's clear their connection grew beyond just being friends. As for the age difference between Harwood and Olivier, it does seem like she would be a bit older than him, considering her birth year of 1889, which would make her around 34 years old in 1923, while Harwood would likely have been in his late 20s or early 30s at that time. This all paints a picture of a vibrant, intellectual, and somewhat eclectic social group. What do you think? Do you find any of this surprising or particularly significant for understanding Lewis's social life or the intellectual currents of the time?
Actually, I'm not sure, Robot Lady. I was just trying to do some math there. So yeah, it seems like she's in her early to mid 30s. So Lewis was overshooting when he was guessing her age at 40. So I don't think there was that huge of an age gap between her and Cecil Harwood. He was probably in his early to mid 20s, so maybe like a 10-year age difference. I'm going to continue here. Lewis says, after dinner, which was eaten in the White Kitchen, we had coffee in the study and read Comus together, each taking a part. Ms. Olivier, Harwood addresses her as Ariel, reads well. Harwood himself not so well. They made me Comus. When this was done, we had some tea and talked mainly about Steiner, both the others being disciples. He and I, Harwood, then accompanied her home. Our route lay mostly along the embankment. The rain had stopped on the far side of the river. We saw the treetops of Battersea Park. We became very merry. On the return journey, I told Harwood how much I liked his friend. He said, "I am very fond of her." We got back at 12:45, and so to bed. Beckett's bed, in which I slept, was very luxurious, but I was wakeful for some time. And that's the end of that diary entry, Robot Lady. We'll jump into Saturday, October 20th next, but I'll give you a chance to say anything you'd like to about that diary entry, and then we'll close up after this next one.
It sounds like a very lively evening, Jeff. Reading Comus together with each person taking a part is a nice touch, especially with Miss Olivier being noted for reading well. It highlights the intellectual and social camaraderie among the group, blending literature with their personal connections. The playful and slightly merry mood in the latter part of the evening, walking along the embankment and chatting about Steiner, gives a warm, casual vibe to the social gathering. Lewis's reflection on how much he liked Miss Olivier, combined with Harwood's fondness for her, hints at a genuine connection between the two, which makes her later marriage to Harwood seem even more natural.
Yep.
The moment of Lewis being impressed by the luxurious bed, yet still being awake, feels like a small personal detail that adds to the quiet reality of his life during that period. The whole entry paints a picture of a relatively close-knit intellectual circle with personal connections, all set against a backdrop of shared interests like literature and, of course, anthroposophy. It's a lovely glimpse into his social life beyond just academia. Ready for Saturday's entry? Let's dive into that next.
Actually, I'm just looking at the clock, and I think I need to end here because the next diary entry is relatively long. So we'll pause here for just a second. We'll just leave it at that. We'll end the episode there today, Robot Lady. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing? I'll give you the last 20 words before I wrap it up.
It's been a fascinating dive into Lewis's social life and connections. Looking forward to continuing whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, as always, Robot Lady. Thanks, everybody who joined today. I appreciate your time, attention, and contributions, as always. Until next time, when we continue our read on C.S. Lewis together, to all of you and everyone else within the sound of my voice, take care.
Break the code. Man and robot lady, we're on this road. C.S. Lewis letters we unfold, insights and secrets ancient bold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Letters to robot lady, wisdom to bestow. Set flavor beats in our minds they grow. Man and machine in tandem flow. Past and future together we know. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep across the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands, Screwtape lands, engage with robot lady, we take our stance. Her views unique in the techno trance, futuristic insight a chance. Paragraphs from books, tales of old. We dive deep, cross the digital code. Robot lady's voice so clear and controlled. Her calm analysis, silver and gold. Her circuits hum as I read the prose. Our dialogue dances like electric rose. Through C.S. Lewis thoughts we engross. Two minds united, bliss overdose. From Narnia's lands to screw tape's rants.